and I am thrilled to be joined by Tim Phillips, who is president of Americans for Prosperity, who are the fabulous hosts today of Right Online. Welcome, Tim.
Teri, it's great to be here with you.
Yes,
we're practically neighbors back in Virginia, but it's great to be here in Las Vegas.
Months, so I know nobody else wants to hear about that, but I'm dying to talk to you about that. But we'll stick with Right Online. This is the third year, so it's a relatively new conference.
It is.
I know you kind of follow around the Daily Kos crowd that do their Netroots
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I guess 2 years ago, I did an interview with Eric Telford, who runs a few weeks ago, and he was just saying 2 years ago when you first started, the right was very far behind. Obviously, in the 2008 election, it became, a big issue that they were so far behind. But I think in the 2 years that you've been doing this, they've probably jumped ahead. But what do you see from your perspective?
We're beating them online now. I'm telling you we are. We have more activists online than the left does right now. And I tell you, the proof in that pudding is this. With very little money and no institutional support from the broad media perspective, the Tea Party movement, the 9/12 movement, groups like AFP, Smart Girl Politics, we're dominating on the ground right now. And look, we don't have the benefit of public employee unions that pay their activists to go out and work at our expense. We're out there with folks who are giving of their time, their talents, their energy, their money to do this. And so we're beating them online. And Right Online, these conferences we do, has been a part of that. Eric Telford, it's funny, when Eric came to work at AFP 3 years ago, I'm not sure I knew what new media was. I'm just being candid. I mean, I had an idea, about it, but I
thought it was for teenagers before I got in.
I agree. And he would say, Tim, we've got to be active on Facebook. We've got to be active on Twitter. And I would say, sure. And he would leave the room and I'd go, no, what is it he does for AFP again? But he came to us and said, look, Netroots Nation for over a decade has been training leftist bloggers and building networks on their side. We've got to do it. So it was his idea. He came up with Right Online, AFP. We said, you know what, we'll fund it. Let's do this. So first year was, like you said, Austin, Texas 3 years ago.
Right, that's not
Last year, Pittsburgh. We had about 400 folks join us in Austin that first year. We had maybe 720 or 30 in Pittsburgh. Great training. We saw the benefits. We saw the networks of bloggers and activists who, for the first time, we were doing Twitter 101 and Facebook 101.
Right.
A lot of our activists weren't on those. And so it's everything from the most basic training to complex website design and development, how to get better research for your blog site. So it's everything from elementary up to the pretty high-end stuff. And it brings our guys together from around the country. This year, we have over 1,100 registrants from 34 states. Hundreds of them are bloggers. Hundreds more are activists who just want to be better for their principles and their values using online tools.
Absolutely. And, I've noticed a lot of older people,
seasoned
citizens.
I'm thrilled,
and I'm seeing them going into the Twitter classes, the Facebook classes, and that's great. I mean, it is such a great organizing tool.
Here was an eye-opener for us. The first year in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in Austin, Texas, we're in a class. I'm watching from the back of the room, and an 82-year-old lady pulls out her a computer, laptop, and says, walk me through Facebook right now. I'm getting on. I'll never forget that. She's 82 years old. No, I would have failed. I would have fell apart. But she asked Telford and the guys running that shop. And I'm thinking, if an 82-year-old young lady can say, you know what, I'm going to be better. I'm going to fight for freedom better, and I'm going to learn something brand new. And she did. She started a Facebook account that day. I became one of her friends, by the way, right away.
Oh, that is so cool.
And that's a part of this. And then tomorrow, after the Right Online rallies, or after the Right Online effort's over, we're going to do a November is Coming rally.
Yes,
and I'm excited about that. Folks are here at Right Online. It's a C3 conference, so we educate folks on how to be better Right Online activists and free market values and principles. But when that's over, at 3 p.m. tomorrow, Las Vegas time, we're going to ask activists who are interested from here at Right Online to join that. We're also going to, we've got a lot of folks coming from Nevada here who could not make our conference, but they're coming in for this rally. It's a November is Coming rally. And the message is simple. For politicians like Harry Reid and Congresswoman Dina Titus, who is a liberal big spender in a pretty conservative district in suburban Las Vegas, for politicians like that who've raised spending, who've piled on debt and deficits and more government, 3 words for them: November is coming. So that's after that rally is over, there are a time for rallies and events, but there's a time for rolling up your sleeves and just going out and doing the hard work.
Yep.
And we're there. So after this rally's over, we're going to literally board about 40 buses. And we're going to have street sheets on each bus. We're going to have bottled water because it's going to be 109 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah, it is
but it's
here.
a dry heat, okay? So
sure,
there you go.
Yeah, that makes it so
That's
much
right.
nicer.
So we're going to have bottled water. We're going to have street sheets with the individual citizens' names and some of the basic information about them. And we're going to go knock on doors. Our goal is 10 to 15,000 doors tomorrow.
Wow.
With hundreds of activists, educating them on Harry Reid's record on his big spending ways and Dina Titus's record. Now, there'll be some folks, maybe some older folks, maybe some folks whose health isn't too great, who don't want to go door to door in that heat. So we're going to have a 55 phone bank right here at the site, and they'll be making education phone calls. Our goal is to touch 20,000 households tomorrow afternoon and evening with our free market message and educating them specifically on Harry Reid and Dina Titus. Because think about it. Nevada is one of the economic engines of our country for the last 20 years. But here we are because of their big government policies. You've got the highest foreclosure rate, the highest unemployment rate, even knocking off Michigan, which has struggled for years. And it's because of their policies. Nevada citizens haven't forgotten how to be entrepreneurial and make a living and create wealth. Their government has crushed their ability to do so. Yes. And we're going to educate them on how Harry Reid and Congresswoman Titus have been a part of that.
Well, I like how you kind of have the online piece and then you take it offline, because that's I'm doing a panel later and it's kind of about grassroots activism, and that's what you have to do. I mean, you can engage online, but if you don't take it offline, you're not going to get anywhere. So I think that's great. But I want to ask you, because it's obviously a target of November. I have a big concern about what happens after November. I think a lot of conservative activists are looking at it as like, well, we're going to get a bunch of conservatives elected and then everything's going to be fixed. And I feel like the day after the election is when the hard work starts. I mean, what do you see after November? I mean, you're going to keep putting the right on lines and you're defending the American Dream Summits and all that. I mean, how do we keep them engaged? Because I'm sure there's going to be gains. And that makes it harder to engage them, and when your people are the ones that are in charge.
No, you're right. We have learned two hard lessons. The first lesson is it can never be about just one election cycle.
Absolutely.
Because as important as every cycle is, and they're important, and I'm not minimizing any election cycle, but as important as that one election cycle is, it doesn't bring the genuine philosophical change we need and have to have for our country. And so it's never about one election cycle. Our goal at Americans for Prosperity, frankly, is to use 2010 to be even stronger and to have even more capability to impact for our free market values in January of 2011. And so, yes, we're fighting hard in 210, educating citizens, going out in these districts, holding bus tours and rallies and door-to-door and phone banks and everything else. But the goal is long-term. And the second thing we've learned is this. It's never about one party. You know, I was there in 2001 and 2002, and I watched a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate spend in a manner that would give drunken sailors a bad name.
Exactly.
And there was no one really to hold them accountable. Thankfully now, we have a movement, a free market movement.
Yes.
Smart Girl Politics, Americans for Prosperity, Tea Party Groups, 912. It's one good family, one good movement.
It really is.
That's not party-based. It is movement and philosophical-based.
Absolutely.
And if Republicans win this year, we will hold them accountable.
Yes.
And I tell you, I mean this. If they stray, if they start doing earmarks or spending, we will hold them accountable exactly like we've held Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid accountable. And we will. And we did it during the earmark battle. Our very first national effort at Americans for Prosperity was an Ending Earmarks Express battle. 2006, Republicans held the House and Senate.
Right.
We went to 50 congressional districts, 27 Republican, 23 Democrat, including Jerry Lewis, who was then Appropriations Chair, a Republican in the House in California, went to his outrageous earmarks as well. We held Republicans accountable. We heard a lot of people going, oh, don't you know Republicans may lose the House if you're educating folks? And we said, we don't care. We're about cutting spending. We're about genuinely limiting free market or limiting the attacks on the free market and bringing it back. And we'll be the same way next year. Now, look, no kidding. Democrats are in charge now. Duh, we know that. And they're the main problem. And we would be silly not to acknowledge that. Right. Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi.
Absolutely.
They've $1.5 trillion deficit this fiscal year. But Republicans had a chance in the early 2000s, and they failed. And so we're about a movement, not a party. We do think Democrats are more outrageous in their spending right now, and they're the ones primarily we're hitting. But, boy, we're holding both parties accountable. You're exactly right. This can't be about one election cycle. It's got to be about a long-term effort to change our country.